But first to the story that's breaking at the moment. The United World Wrestling Federation has issued a strong statement threatening to suspend the Wrestling Federation of India, condemning the manner in which wrestlers were detained. The World Wrestling Body has expressed disappointment over the manner in which the investigation has taken place against Member of Parliament and former WFI President Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. The World Body has threatened to suspend India if full and free WFI elections are not held within 45 days. Sources have been saying that the WFI polls will be held soon and the dates will be announced next week. So the pressure clearly is building up, with the World Wrestling Body also now getting involved. Now remember, all of this is coming at a time when the wrestlers were detained on Sunday as they threatened to march towards the new Parliament building. But now more high drama has taken place on the ghats of the river Ganga in Haridwar, where today the sporting heroes threatened to immerse their hard-earned medals into the Ganga. That was stopped because BKU, the Bharatiya Kisan Union leaders, also came there and stopped the wrestlers from going ahead with the immersion. But the wrestlers have issued a 5-day ultimatum and demanded the arrest of BJP MP and Wrestling Federation of India Chief Brij Bhushan Saran Singh, insisting that he is a perpetrator of sexual harassment. Our top story today is on the latest twist in the wrestlers' protest.
Olympic medalists who brought glory to India dragged and detained. After they broke barricades and scuffled with cops for stopping them from marching to the new parliament on Sunday during its unveiling. Protesting wrestlers were charged with rioting, unlawful assembly and obstructing cops, but were released by evening. Cops in their FIR say the wrestlers ignored their pleas to stop the march as it could hit national prestige.
इनके खिलाफ जो भी लीगल एक्शन होना है वह नई दिल्ली डिस्ट्रिक्ट ले रही है, क्योंकि ये हमारे लिए बहुत गलत है कि वो वाला दिन और वो वाला समय जब हमारी सिक्योरिटी एजेंसीज हमारे नए पार्लियामेंट के उद्घाटन में बिजी थी, तब इन्होंने ये सब करने की कोशिश की है जिसकी उनको कोई परमिशन नहीं थी.
Wrestler Sakshi Malik narrated the ordeal and said the wrestlers are now tired.
हम पैदल चल रहे थे तो उन्होंने आगे से पुशिंग स्टार्ट कर दी कि नहीं आगे जाने देंगे. पुशिंग में फिर ऐसे ही उन्होंने जबरदस्ती हमें डिटेन करने की कोशिश की. हमने भी थोड़ा सा रोकने की कोशिश की कि हमें मत लेके जाओ, हम शांतिपूर्वक मार्च करेंगे, हमारी बात तो सुनो, हम कोई हिंसा नहीं कर रहे, हम किसी को मार भी नहीं रहे.
Reacting to the FIR, Vinesh Fogart claimed a new history was being written.
लड़कियों की आप अंदर डिटेन करके रख रहे हो, हम कोऑपरेट करें हर तरीके से. आपने जो किया वो तो पूरे देश ने देख ही लिया है, जो हमारा मान सम्मान बढ़ा है वो तो देख ही लिया है.
The opposition claimed high-handed action against India's top athletes.
भाजपा का नारा एक्सपोज हुआ ना इस बात पे. जो बेटियों का साथ देने की बात करते थे, बेटियों के सम्मान की बात करते थे, आपने देख लिया क्या सम्मान किया भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने. ये केवल दिखावटी नारे थे भारतीय जनता पार्टी के, और दिखावटी नारे इसलिए.
This was of course 2 days ago. What happened today? Well, those are the scenes that you can see in Haridwar, where the wrestlers today threatened to throw their medals into the Ganga, and they were then eventually stopped by BKU president or one of the office bearers, Naresh Tiket. The various Kisan unions joined in and in an expression of solidarity said that they would stand with the wrestlers, but they should not throw their medals into the river. All of this has led to several questions. Has the wrestlers' protest gone out of control? Are the wrestlers losing faith in the system? Should they be showing patience? Why is Brij Bhushan Saran Singh being shielded? And if he is, who is doing so? Those are some of the questions we want to raise tonight. We'll also play out why the wrestlers said that they would throw their medals into the Ganga in a moment. But joining me now is a panel of people who've tracked sports for years. Pradeep Magazine, senior sports journalist, joins me. Nikhil Naz, our consulting editor here, who tracks sport for us at India Today. Vikrant Gupta, managing editor, SportsTak and Sports AajTak, is with us. Neeru Bhatia is a senior sports journalist. And Preeti Chaudhary is joining me. She's tracked this wrestlers' protest for several weeks now. I appreciate all of you joining us. And I'm going to ask you all that simple question. Do you think the wrestlers were justified in threatening to actually throw their medals into the Ganga? Preeti Chaudhary, why don't you take it first? We'll then come to all the sports journalists.
You know, I think the bigger question, Rajdeep, is that were the wrestlers justified in holding a protest on the day where the parliament was to be inaugurated, the new building, and, you know, justified to throw their medals into the Ganga? It's ultimately, if you look at it, they wanted to immerse it in the Ganga. It's not just their medals for them, because we've been speaking to them as well. It's their entire career in that one box. Now, what does a wrestler aspire to do? Somebody who finishes at the podium at the highest level. You know, this is their sheer hard work, you know, sweat, blood, pain, joy, all of that put together. It was an emotional decision. Of course, it was an emotional decision that they had taken. But what's interesting is on what really went down in the end. So you had somebody like a Naresh Tiket, who here in the capacity, Rajdeep, has intervened not so much as the head of the Bharatiya Kisan Union, but also as the head of one of the most influential and powerful cups when you come down to it. He heads the Balian Cup. His word has writ. And he is also...
No, but is this Nautanki? There will be those who will say this is all stage managed drama to take eyeballs. The athletes should remain athletes. This is not for them to stage these kind of protests. How do you see that?
No, in their defense, what is it that the wrestlers always say? That for about 2.5 months, they did try to negotiate with the government. They did make it very clear that they will not allow their dais, their podium to be used by political outfits or even outfits like the Bharatiya Kisan Union or the Khap Panchayats. They said that we've waited our time, we have lost patience. And, you know, you've got to give them the benefit of doubt, because it's 37 days. They are squatting at Jantar Mantar. What has really happened? It took 7 days for the Supreme Court to intervene for an FIR to be filed. It took several other
days. But how
days.
can you set a deadline that 5 days you've got to arrest him, otherwise we'll throw our medals into the Ganga? It's blackmail.
But has the government even batted an eyelid? Has anyone till now? 37 days. It's led up to it. Why aren't you looking at their fight on what it's been? It's been 37 days in the making, Rajdeep.
And why has he not been questioned as yet?
Yeah.
I mean, let alone
You're saying why Brij Bhushan Saran Singh not being questioned?
Yes, the charges are POSCO, right? He needs to be questioned for that. That's what the wrestlers are saying. That's all right, that, you know, the law needs to take the due process, that's all right. What the wrestlers are asking, why isn't that you've even called him once to even question him? If you remember, going back to that time, they refused to even register an FIR against him. So that will raise the questions. Then you have the other issues. I agree that on that day of the parliament,
yes,
you know, they were marching ahead and the police had no option but to hold them. But what you said, it is Nautanki, but what is the option that is left for the wrestlers? We live in a world of event management, right? Where only event management allows you some sort of coverage. They've figured that out. They've realized that we need to do event management, only then will our voice be heard.
Okay.
I'm sure
where Vikrant Gupta comes in, because he's been very clear in a tweet that I saw, Vikrant. You believe that wrestlers simply should not be even considering throwing their medals away, because they are playing with not just the medals and their reputation, but with the country who you believe has contributed to their rise.
No, they won the medals. I mean, and these are Olympic medals. In the case of Bajrang and Sakshi, yes. Vinesh hasn't won an Olympic medal.
But she's won a world championship.
Yeah, she's been a world champion. So these medals do belong to them. They belong to the country as well.
But they have the right to throw the medals if they believe that the system has failed them. They have every right to throw them away.
But okay,
not quite right.
My point is they were taken to the brink, and Preeti is right. The government did not bat an eyelid. My point is, till 6 p.m., I may have been with them, and I sincerely never hoped that they'll immerse the medals into the Ganga. I thought maybe somebody would intervene, but not Naresh Tikat. How can you give your medals to Naresh Tikat?
You're saying that it is a sign how the movement is getting politicized.
You cannot give your medals to a third person. And what is the guarantee now? If he says 5 days, will something happen? What happens to the medals then?
So there is one view, of course, that this is well-planned optics. The other view, of course, is that they are playing with the emotions of millions of fans who respect them for what they've achieved on the field. Where do you stand, Pradeep Magazine? Do you believe that the wrestlers have been pushed to the brink by a system that is not batting an eyelid?
Well, Rajdeep, I'm surprised that there should be any other opinion about this. What is the law of the land? The law of the land is if women allege of sexual harassment, especially a minor, an FIR is immediately to be registered. And Bhushan has been charged with a crime which is non-bailable. There is immediate arrest for that, regardless of what politics they are playing or not playing. First of all, this fact everyone knows. So why is this man, who happens to be an influential member of the ruling party, not being even questioned, as Nikhil was saying? I am not aware of it, whether he is being questioned or not, but the way he is moving around, threatening people. There is a video which your channel also, I think, showed, where he has admitted openly that I have killed a man. And what are we debating? Who's on which side, who's not? Now, let's come to the second point. Olympic winners, people celebrated, people of India, women are alleging this. These were the people whom Prime Minister Modi called home and said that he's proud of them. If I remember correctly, he even said that if you people have any problem, I am there for you. Now to say that they are playing politics, they may be. What choice? We have left them so helpless. Can you imagine a country where women, and that too women of that stature, are crying and saying that this is what they have followed the law of the land, and nobody is listening to them? And what kind of a country is this? Why should we be even debating that whether they are playing politics or not? When we say they are playing politics, we are actually saying that they are lying. Why should they lie? They have staked their entire career. I don't see any future for them. We have such rare few medals, not even handful of Olympic medals. What are we talking here?
Okay, let's get Neeru Bhatia in also. Neeru, do you go along with the fact that the wrestlers have been pushed to the brink, and what they've done is basically drawn attention to the fact that someone who's been in power, control the wrestling federation, is accused of sexual harassment and worse?
I completely agree that they have been pushed to the brink. They've been sitting and they've been demanding justice for so long, and nobody gave a damn. Other than a few handful of the sporting community and the cops, who's been actually supporting them? Who? Nobody. I mean, Abhinav Bindra and the others have been supporting them on Twitter and on social media and saying we support their cause, but who's been actually supporting them? They've not been heard. Then the government has not blinked, and he's part of the ruling party, and he's a powerful man. Fair enough. And the government is this government is also very mindful of the fact that nobody should upset their apple cart while going into elections. But the fact is that why would they say all these things if and put everything at stake?
Let's try and understand that. Why is it that no cricketer? Anil Kumble is the first cricketer, celebrated cricketer today, has come out in a tweet.
Virendra Sehwag has also tweeted on the day that the
incident
happened.
But the fact is, none of our present playing cricketers have come out on this issue. Abhinav Bindra, Neeraj Chopra have tweeted. Why is it that everyone else is silent? Why am I not seeing greater protests from within the sporting community? What explains that?
I've said this earlier as well, and this is not just pertaining to this particular issue. There have been times that I've spoken to a lot of players, a lot of current players, and I agree with you that maybe retired players should look at it. But two things that I get to hear. One is that they need to work within the system. As Mr. Magazine just pointed out, these wrestlers have now risked their careers. I do not see a future for them as far as the sports is concerned, right? Similar, which cricketer at the moment in prime of his career would want to risk his future?
Or even those who've retired,
work within
they're
the
part
system.
of the same cricketing community.
No, how do you work out?
Are you saying that they don't have a conscience? Are you saying that they don't feel strongly about it?
They do. But how many
what
times
about a woman?
I have spoken to a few.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that nobody has the conscience, but the fact is, a few of them do say, "Hame pata nahi yaar exactly kya hai." So the moment as sensitive a topic as this, they are very careful. And I think they're also fearful of the...
I feel, I'm sorry I'm coming in, Vikrant, because हमें पता नहीं है क्या क्या मुद्दा है is a very convenient point to take, and why I
Not
say
kya
that.
mudda hai. Exactly where
क्या
does it
हुआ?
stand?
Where does it stand?
So,
Now,
both-
why I differ is, and I'll tell you why most people will differ on this. Nobody is saying take their word as the gospel truth. Nobody is saying, you know, go ahead with that. What are you saying? You're saying follow due process of law. 7 days to file an FIR. I'll give you an example. You know, me and my team for my show was going through figures. The Delhi police in the last 2 months, in 8 cases of a minor reporting a rape crime or a sexual harassment crime, has seen an immediate arrest. So are we following the due process of law? What was the tipping point here for these wrestlers on Sunday, where, you know, they have, okay, they are, it's questionable. Should they have done it 8 hours after the inauguration? Separate. The tipping point was when images of a Brij Bhushan Sharan, who's a POXO accused, is standing in Parliament, and, you know, one can say history was being made inside and outside Parliament.
So
He
you're
is
saying
an accused.
the wrestlers are the ones, almost the victims, who are being treated as the accused, while the alleged perpetrator seems to be getting off lightly. Listening to what Brij Bhushan Saran Singh had told us, he remains defiant, labeling the allegations against him just a matter of good touch and bad touch. Listen in.
भाइयों, ये जो मुकदमा है, ये बैठक, कूदटक, छुआछूत का मुकदमा है, छुआछूत का मुकदमा है, सही छुआ कि गलत छुआ।
You know, you have Brij Bhushan Saran Singh, someone who's who's been a Tada detainee in the past, someone who self-confessed to murder on camera. He represents in a way the power of a 6-time MP, but also the way in which officials have run federations. Do you believe, therefore, Pradeep Magazine, the problem is that eventually those in power stand by their own, and therefore the wrestlers, despite bringing glory to the country, are in an unequal battle when you're taking on someone like Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. That's why they are forced to resort to what Nikhil called these kind of event management. Will throw our medals into the river.
Rajdeep, one has to admire the courage shown by these wrestlers that they came out openly, knowing that who are they dealing with, because he has been the president there for many years. They know how powerful he is. So obviously they couldn't take any more, and they came out openly to challenge them. And they probably thought that they have done enough for the country that people or the establishment will listen to them. Now, the problem here is that you have politicians, part of the establishment, who are ruling federations. You have a cricket board which is in a similar situation. And why those cricketers, I'm not justifying, they should take a stand, because there is a stage in your life where you have to take a stand. And what, especially cricketers who have achieved enough that even the state will fear touching them, why can't they speak? Obviously, they can't speak, as Nikhil is saying, and we all know why, because of the same simple reason that they feel that they will be targeted. Fine, but there are people. Muhammad Ali won an Olympic gold medal. He threw his medal in a river. He took many other stands later when he probably is the greatest athlete world has seen. And yet he took many stands. And today, if he is admired, he is as much admired for his boxing skills as he is admired for taking on the establishment.
No, I take your point, but you see what has happened. What has happened? Yes, but what has happened, Neeru Bhatia, and people are already putting it out on my timeline, saying, are we saying that on the basis of allegations made by these wrestlers, there should be an immediate arrest? Their argument is, now that an FIR has been filed, now that there are investigations, should the wrestlers back off and give the government some time? Otherwise, they say, inevitably they will be caught in this political crossfire.
But Rajdeep, I'm not talking about an arrest, but call him in for an interrogation at least. And secondly, who cares? I mean, why should cricketers talking or not talking or taking a stand really be important here? Isn't the word of Olympic medalists or the Olympic community enough? I mean, these people have achieved so much for the country, for God's sake. And secondly, you can call Brij Bhushan Sharan in and interrogate him. There's no stopping. I mean, we did that in the match.
They're calling for his arrest. They're not saying interrogate him. They are saying arrest him in the next 5 days. That's almost like that's like setting a deadline to the police.
Maybe, but at least let's start with calling him in and doing a proper interrogation. Like, even during the match fixing scandal, Mr. Magazine would know that very well. Nobody was arrested, but they were grilled for hours and hours, and none was spared. All the names that were being talked about were called upon. So let's just start somewhere. Here, this man is not
It's
been
not a
arrested.
regular FIR.
Also,
No,
FIR
there is
under
one which is under the POCSO Act that calls for arrest. Yes.
If it's led to immediate arrest in other cases, why not this one, as she points out?
Yeah, fair enough.
Like the
Yes.
same point I want to raise.
Yes.
I mean, there is a law of the land. I mean, you're not following the law of the land. They have registered a case. The charge
Under
is
POSCO.
such that there is immediate arrest for it. And they have not, that man is roaming around and threatening the wrestlers. That is another crime. There should be another FIR against him for that.
Okay, an interesting sports, one of your fraternity has sent a message saying, look, the medals that the wrestlers have, one does not belong to them alone, but to the country, a point that you made, Vikrant, because they played under the Indian flag and their medals have been won with the efforts of not just the wrestlers' hard work, but also the hard work of multiple people like their coaches and support staff. They've been sent for foreign training, trained at camps, competed internationally. The money that has been spent on them to win medals belongs to taxpayers. Now you've got, conflicting views. You see, the moment you get into something like a medal, Muhammad Ali eventually turned out probably lost the medal while he was shifting houses, but claimed he had thrown it into the river as a protest against racism in US society.
And he reformed the society.
But as Pradeep says, he was someone who took a stand on issues. Do you believe that these wrestlers should be seen as people who are finally breaking a certain omerta code of silence over sexual harassment in sport, and therefore they too should be seen as people who are changing the rules of the game? They're doing something that
the government has to intervene, and if
the government has to intervene.
They should have by now.
So why is the sports minister silent?
If they are celebrated when they win, again, I do feel that the medal belongs as much as the athletes as the country, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they won the medal because of us. They won the medal individually.
Because of their hard work.
Because of their hard work. No matter what money has been put in, what efforts been put in, they won the medals. In a country of 140 crore people, from 1980 till 1996, India did not win even a single Olympic medal. And there are 2 medals here. Ravi Dahia, of course, I think has drifted away. Deepak Punia has drifted away. They know that they've got a career in wrestling, and maybe silently they may. So the point is that the government by now should have intervened.
So why are they not? Why is we haven't heard a word from Smriti Irani? She's Women and Child Development Minister, and this is a case involving sexual harassment of your top, at least that's the allegation, against an MP. We haven't heard from Anurag Thakur unless he's been asked a question. He's tried to stay away from it, saying let the law take its own course.
Barring the meetings that he had in January.
The earlier meeting. So I'm just wondering whether there's a feeling that because the MP involved is someone who is a strongman of UP, has won 6 elections, you've got a general election next year, the government doesn't want, unless it's 100% sure of the charges, to actually go that extra step and arrest him.
No, how can you be 100% sure without investigating? It's an oxymoron there. But having said that, Rajdeep, when you talk
about... No, the police is saying they're investigating.
But you're not following due process of law then, I'm sorry. But what I'm just saying is I want to come back to the medals because there's so much brouhaha about why bring medals into it. I want to go back during the OROP protest, 1 rank, 1 pension. How many of our veterans who had their medals gave their medals up? There is always a tipping point in a protest. In the OROP, 1 rank, 1 pension, you had so many veterans I know who had fought in 65, 71 war, who gave up their medals to the president, gave it up. Right? Now that happened. Why are we questioning them? It's very similar, no? That time it was okay, it's not okay now.
Okay, can yes.
Just on the point you said, why is it that the government hasn't come in? When they win medals, they're all clamoring for photo ops. That's not happening now. I'm no political expert, but you've had protests, in the recent past in the country, whether there was the farmers' protest, whether there was the Shaheen Bagh protest before that. At any point, did you see the dispensation engage with the protesters? They did not, right? and we all know what the result was on those occasions. So maybe when you know that you really don't need to engage, you really don't need to speak, and yet you get exactly what you desire, then why would you see a need to then come down and engage?
I take your point. I just want to paint pictures of Muhammad Ali because he was a great hero for many of us growing up. And Pradeep Magazine, should we really be seeing these wrestlers like an Ali? Ali, as you rightly said, was the greatest not just because of what he did in boxing, but because he stood up for certain values. Do we need a Muhammad Ali-like figure now, some of our greatest sports persons, to stand up and say, look, these wrestlers need to be heard and given a voice?
Well, it'll be very welcome and heartening if some top cricketer or sports person has the courage to stand up and say, like what Abhinav Bindra said. I mean, you have to admire Abhinav Bindra. He's the gold medalist. We just have 2 gold medals individual in Olympic Games, and both have stood up for these athletes. And these women and Bajrang Punia, they are our role models, and they should be our greater role models now, for the simple reason they've stood up against the establishment. In some of them believe in the ideological framework of this party. It's not as if they were in some opposition camp and they played.
Absolutely. Bajrang Punia was a great fan, he told me, of Prime Minister Modi, and in fact had reportedly been told by the Prime Minister, you can always call me up whenever. But I want to understand from you, Neeru Bhatia, that the fact that these are women athletes. So if there was silence among male athletes for years, 60s, 70s, 80s, women athletes perhaps were even more intimidated by officials. I was just told a story this morning of athletes who got their tracksuits at the last moment when they were going for a major Asian Games, which was from old blankets that had been cut from Azad Market in Delhi. So we've come from there to today when these athletes are at least celebrated. I just want to understand, is it even more difficult in your view for women to actually come out against powerful male officials?
Of course it is. It always is. But the thing is that I don't know about the 80s and the 70s, but definitely during Vijbhushan Sharan Singh ji's regime, these allegations have come up and they need to be looked into at all costs, because, can you imagine if the number of girls, young girls who are taking up this sport of wrestling, I mean, how traumatic it would have been for them, the kind of trauma they've come through. And I think nobody would know that better than the protesting women wrestlers, because they would have seen that or heard of that. And why would they do this?
Okay,
why would they lie about it?
Okay, why would they lie about it? A final word, is there any possibility, as some critics are saying, that these wrestlers are now enmeshed in Haryana's politics? Haryana's politicians are reportedly dived in. The Congress, Dipinder Hooda and others have come up in solidarity with them. Now the Bharatiya Kisan Union gets involved. Are they aware of the fact that they could be used, become political pawns, elections in Haryana next year?
Rajdeep, the way I see it is, when they're on the podium, they make a podium finish, they win a medal, they are Indians. The minute they are in protest, sitting in Jantar Mantar, you make it into a Haryana lobby. I don't get that. Now, having said that, I would just want to say one thing. Is it politicized? Of course it's politicized. Look at the kind of support they're getting. Every other opposition party is trying to milk, this protest to their favor. Nobody's denying that. Has it been infiltrated by possibly elements which many of us would call Andolan Jeevis? Of course it's been infiltrated by that. But in the end, what are you supposed to look at? Ultimately, nobody is saying take their word for the gospel truth, but get on with the investigation as per due course of law.
Okay. I think in that sense, the voice of these wrestlers is a voice that must be heard. You cannot shut them down. And I think what they've done today is actually made sure that they will not back down. What I wonder is, why do many of our other elite athletes not stand up and be counted at a time like this? This is something that we should ask ourselves. At the end of the day, we venerate our athletes for the glory they brought on the field. We expect them to stand in solidarity of it. We want to see more Abhinav Bindras and more Neeraj Chopras at a moment like this. I thank you all for joining me.